The turmoil in China's real estate sector is starting to cause worries among regulators in other major economies. The U.S. Federal Reserve has included the Chinese real estate crisis in its list of risks that could destabilize the global economy. In a report, the American Central Bank warned of stresses that could lead to a deterioration of risk sentiment. Those issues are already starting to spill over to China's broader credit market. Investors are dumping higher quality Chinese bonds, including IOUs issued by firms backed by the Chinese government. That comes ahead of another major deadline for Evergrande, the company at the center of the crisis. It's once again on the brink of default after falling behind on $148 million in coupon payments due last month. The grace period for those obligations ends on Wednesday. Now, for more, let's go to Jeffrey Hawley. He's a senior market analyst for the Asia-Pacific region at Owanda and joins us live from Jakarta. Welcome back to the program, Jeffrey. Now, companies in China, another deadline for Evergrande coming up, though it has been able to make similar payments in the past. Is the company starting to turn the corner here, or are they just delaying the inevitable default that investors are waiting for?
Well, it looks like Evergrande will dodge the bullet again. They appear to have raised enough money to make those obligations this week, but they've done it by selling a stake in another company that they own. So they're having to sort of fire sale assets in a bit by bit process to try and make these ongoing payments. So even though they will be able to pay this 150 odd million US dollars this week, it's not really the sign of a company that's in good financial health, that they're scrabbling around, waiting to the last minute to pay it and having to sell off other parts of the company to do so. So I think this story still has a lot more to go, and that Evergrande is by no means out of the woods.
Right, so not out of the woods, and the Fed agrees. A lot of risks surrounding the company. It's warning that it could destabilize markets in other countries. What would need to happen to Evergrande or other big Chinese developers for this to be a truly global crisis?
I think this would have to be a disorderly collapse of a large proportion of the property development developer sector in China into a chaotic mess where apartments were left unfinished and bills were defaulted across both China and internationally. I just don't see the Chinese government allowing this to happen. If it did, then that would cause contagion within the Chinese financial system, which would then spill over into the international system. But again, it's not my base case. I think that in the end, China is going to try and perform an orderly wind down on some of these weaker property developers.
But we're already starting to see signs of that contagion, aren't we? How does this Evergrande crisis affect the ability of other Chinese companies to raise money from financial markets?
Yeah, look, we are seeing this flowing through into the China credit market. High yield debt, what we would sometimes call junk debt, it's trading at around 25% in yield terms at the moment. So that's what it costs companies to borrow. And if you're a property company, you just can't borrow at all in international markets. So that side of the market is definitely frozen up. But investment grade Chinese companies are still able to borrow at very reasonable costs on international markets. So as such, this is very much a high yield debt property developer sector problem, and it hasn't spread to the wider investment grade sectors as yet.
All right, Jeffrey Hawley, Senior Market Analyst for the Asia-Pacific region at Owanda. Thank you for the analysis, as always.